Hi guys, it's Phil
And Liam
from Die Hard on a Blank, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long
approximately
episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one buddy movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
As well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
Visit patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies to subscribe.
Hey guys, it's Mary from Two Judgy Girls, and get ready for a new season of the Hulu original reality series Vanderpump Villa. This season, Lisa moves Vanderpump Villa to an all-new castle in Italy. Lisa is joined by the one and only Stassi Schroeder to help keep an eye on the new and returning staff. The elite staff will face scrutiny like never before as they work and play under one roof. New castle, new guests, and new drama. Season 2 of Vanderpump Villa premieres April 24th, streaming on Hulu.
We all belong outside. We're drawn to nature, whether it's the recorded sounds of the ocean we doze off to, or the succulents that adorn our homes. Nature makes all of our lives, well, better. Despite all this, we often go about our busy lives removed from it. But the outdoors is closer than we realize. With All Trails, you can discover trails nearby and explore confidently. With offline maps and on-trail navigation, download the free app today.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Welcome to Die Hard on a Blank, the podcast where we explore the influence of Die Hard on action cinema, one action movie at a time. I'm Philip Cawthorne, and with me as always is Liam Billingham, and today's film is Deep Blue Sea.
It's Die Hard underwater with genius sharks.
Yep.
What a weird sentence to say out loud.
That was a sentence that was just said. Yeah. So a crazy movie, an interesting movie,
kind of an iconic movie in its way.
Yeah,
kind of a legendary sort of box art on the DVD and memorable movie for sure.
And with and speaking of box art on DVDs, we have a very special guest. Would you like to introduce our special guest, Liam?
Our special guest this week is Justin LaLiberty. Justin, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so psyched to have you. You know, part of the thing that's been fun in my middle age is having a midlife crisis, and my midlife crisis was to get back into physical media collecting and finding that so many of the movies that I love, and from the 90s especially, both well-known and maybe less well-known, are getting these physical media releases. And so this includes Deep Blue Sea, which just got a release from Arrow Video. But we wanted to bring Justin on because Justin is the director of operations at OCN and Vinegar Syndrome and has a really special label that he releases movies under. Oh my goodness. Justin, give it to me one more time.
Cinematograph.
I went to film school and I can't say that, but it's a really special label because they're releasing, movies, a real diverse set of movies. You have stuff that has never seen a Blu-ray release or a DVD release before. But like just last week, you announced Drop Zone, which is a big movie for this podcast. And like, I personally am like find it kind of like exciting and moving that a movie like that is getting this like deluxe treatment. So I'm curious, like, how do you, as the person that's making a lot of these selections and working with the team, I assume, like, how do you pick the movies that you want to release on the label?
I mean, kind of like anything we do, especially people in boutique home video, I think in general, is we release the things we like. I feel like that's kind of like, it's almost like a cop-out answer, but, there's a lot of other things that come into play, like what's available for licensing, how, good the elements are. And then, of course, trends in the marketplace. There's films I really love, but probably won't end up releasing because they just will never make money, or at least not, maybe not even make the money back that we invest in them. So that is like a reality that we have to pay attention to. But for the most part, everything on Cinematograph is a movie that I really love for one reason or another. So that's, the guiding principle behind it is anything curatorial. My background prior to Vinegar Syndrome was in film programming. So it's a similar approach to me, is that I'm looking at these films to check certain boxes and saying, like, this fits the mission of what Cinematograph is. And I hope that people just respond to it, which they seem to be.
With something like
100%.
Drop Zone, how did that one come about? Because as anyone that knows this show knows, like, that is right in our wheelhouse, and that is a movie that I absolutely love and try to kind of champion. With that, how did that one come about? Were you always a big fan of it? And I gather the Blu-ray, the features on the Blu-ray sound incredible. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Drop Zone came about because, like both of you probably, I grew up with action movies. I really, love action movies. And, Drop Zone is directed by John Badham, who directed Saturday Night Fever. And I think that's something a lot of people probably didn't put together when Drop Zone came out, or even just like looking at what Drop Zone is now, they probably don't see the through line. And Cinematograph is a label that is dedicated to kind of championing forgotten American movies, either indies or studio films, with a filmmaker forward approach. And to me, John Badham is one of these, kind of forgotten American filmmakers. Like, he made Saturday Night Fever. He made, War Games is, kind of an action movie for kids, basically. And there's all these other genre movies that he made throughout his career that I think are really exciting. I love Stakeout. I really
just
like
covered
The Hard
it
Way.
on our other show.
The Hard Way.
We love
juice,
Badham.
Man.
We're crazy about John Badham. Blue Thunder is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Blue Thunder is amazing. And I think there's somewhere along the line, he just kind of fell out of that conversation. And he was an important filmmaker in the new Hollywood. And I think he's an important filmmaker in 80s and 90s genre cinema. So when the opportunity came about that Drop Zone was available for licensing, it's like, this is a movie that needs to be revisited. I think even in the conversation of just 90s action movies in general, I think it's forgotten. It's overshadowed by Point Break for obvious reasons, just in terms of its subject matter. But I just don't think it ever got a fair shake. I don't think it got a fair shake theatrically when it came out. And I don't think it's gotten one since on home video. So hopefully this is that.
I love this. It feels very in tandem with our kind of, mission, as it were, of just like treating these films with genuine love and respect, and treating these filmmakers with genuine love and respect. I mean, we're doing so many Badham movies on 48 Hours of Buddy Movies. We've just done Stakeout. We'll be doing another Stakeout. We'll be doing The Hard Way. We love guys like that, like Badham and Peter Hyams and those kind of like slightly less heralded but amazing filmmakers who had this great body of work. So I love what you guys are doing.
It's just also cool because I'm looking at the stuff that you've already put on the label, and like things like Thieves Like Us, which is a movie that I also agree like not enough people have seen, or Go Fish, which in film school we had to watch in film school, and that was a decade ago when I was in grad school for film, and like that was not an easy movie to track down. So you're sort of like, it's cool to see not only championing movies that are hard to find, but also like recontextualizing movies like Drop Zone in its context. It's really exciting. So cool.
And putting them next to these like revered movies that maybe haven't gotten an audience. But I love the idea that something like Drop Zone's on the same label as Go Fish.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, that's what makes it special, and it's like a cool sort of curatorial. It's a very exciting curatorial decision in my mind. So, well, we're really psyched to have you. I wish we were talking about a bad movie, but we do have Deep Blue Sea. What's your
Renny Harlin movie? Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask.
The histories. Yeah. Go ahead, Liam. Yes.
Yeah. So, what's your relationship to this movie? Are you like a big fan, longtime fan?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw this in the theater when it came out with my whole family. This was one of those things like I come from like a family that loved movies, maybe not as much as I did. Like I was a weirdo. It's, probably like
relatable.
We all are. It's just, I was obsessed with my family, really enjoyed going to movies, and especially in the summer, like the summer movie season was like, any kind of movie that appeared to be a blockbuster, it's like we were all going to go together. And Deep Blue Sea was one of those. I remember going to see, we were actually on vacation, and we found a movie theater on vacation to go see Deep Blue Sea opening weekend. And
wow, that is commitment. So you actually go, no pun intended, you go pretty deep with your love for this movie. Whereabouts was this, out of curiosity? Where are you from, and where were you on vacation when this
so I'm from New Hampshire, and we were on vacation in New Hampshire, the state we lived in, but we would go up to the White Mountains, and we would, there was like funny. A small one screen, like suburban kind of movie theater,
Mount Washington and in that area,
like around that, and we saw Deep Blue Sea at like a strip mall, like single or double screen theater. It's like
this is right in your wheelhouse, Liam, isn't it?
I went to
New
college
England
in New Hampshire.
wistfulness.
I went to college in New Hampshire and just just like driving. I went to UNH, so like having the kind of like driving to I remember going to like the opening night of a future Die Hard on a Blank movie, Snakes on a Plane, at like a 2-screener in rural New Hampshire. So I have like such a strong connection to what you're and I can feel it. I can feel the movie theater that you're describing.
Did you guys enjoy it when you went to see it the first time? Like, what was the reaction?
Oh yeah, I mean, we loved it. I liked it probably the most, but it's a crowd pleaser. Like I don't think you can really watch this movie, especially with an audience. And like it wasn't like packed. It wasn't. We went to like a matinee, and it's in a pretty small population area, so it wasn't packed. But I remember the other movie they had on screen was a family movie. I want to say it was Inspector Gadget.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Timeline wise.
Yep. I think they, it's like that kind of vibe. Like you have 2 screens, and it's like we need something for the kids, and then we need something for everybody else. And I remember being there, and it was it was like Deep Blue Sea had a good audience, but I think the most people that were there, because it was like noon, was for the kids movie, so it was definitely more heavy for their audience.
That's great, and that's really taps into something key actually about this movie, is the fact that it does, I think, lose a lot of its pizzazz by watching it alone at home, and it's designed to kind of be a kind of big spectacle, theatrical, crowd pleasing, like the front row will get wet kind of experience, right? And Drop Zone similarly as well, actually, funnily enough, we kind of talked about that in that episode. Liam, had you seen this before, or
yes,
you had? Okay.
So to continue on the 90s memory train, I worked at a video store, and the reason I'm so clearly sure that it probably was Inspector Gadget is I remember stocking the VHSs and DVDs of this movie next, like there was like a section where the action movies were, and like around the corner from it was where the family movies were. And I like remember putting an Inspector Gadget back on the shelf and then putting a Deep Blue Sea. So I didn't see this in the theater. I watched it on you could borrow screeners of the movies before they came to home video that the video store would get. And as an employee, you could like watch a movie 1 or 2 months before it came out, because once the people that own the store had approved it, they'd put it on the back shelf. So it was kind of cool. I like brought it to a friend's house for like a Saturday night movie night a month or two before it came out. I revisited it for this, a few nights ago. So it had been like 25 years since I'd seen it. I recall enjoying it. I recall so clearly the laugh when Samuel L. Jackson gets taken out by that shark after giving the speech, and it delivered on the rewatch. This is a really, really silly and very entertaining movie that has some like absolutely amazing moments. And I had a great time revisiting it. How about you, Phil?
I don't have a huge history with this one, so I won't take up too much time. I rented it. I thought it was like, oh yeah, like a silly, fun, somewhat self-aware, that's something we'll have to unpack. It's like, how self-aware is this movie at times? Sometimes it feels like it is very much winking at the audience, and sometimes it feels like it's not, and that's something we can kind of figure out. But I don't have like a huge history with it, but it was an interesting one to rewatch. It definitely qualifies, meets our criteria as a Die Hard on a Blank film, even though it's such a different sort of style and tone and genre to some extent. But should we put some of this in context with our fast facts?
Fast facts, let's do it.
So we can get more specific about when these memories occurred. So Deep Blue Sea was directed, of course, by Renny Harlin, written by Duncan Kennedy, Donna Powers, and Wayne Powers. It stars Samuel L. Jackson, Saffron Burrows, Thomas Jane, LL Cool J, Jacqueline McKenzie, Michael Rappaport, and Stellan Skarsgård. Distributed by Warner Brothers on July 28th, 1999. Yeah. The budget is listed as somewhere between 60 and 82 million. So there's no actual like hard number that I could find, but the box office is listed as 165 million. So regardless of whether it was at the higher or lower end of that budget, it was a hit. I mean, this movie was a hit, and it spawned like we've also had this thing that we were talking about the other day with Sniper and Starship Troopers, these Universal Soldier, these direct-to-video sequels that this movie had.
I didn't know it did. Well.
Yeah. So I only discovered that too. Have you seen them?
Yeah,
break it down for
really
us.
Fun. Yeah, I mean, they're like, I don't know how like strong of a sequel. It's one of those things where like, if you've ever seen some of the direct-to-video sequels to the Hellraiser movies, you can tell they were like scripts for something else, and then they like dropped Pinhead into them. And I feel like there's a part of me that thinks like that might have been the case with the Deep Blue Sea sequels. Like they were just
that makes sense
shark movies, and then Warner was like, well, we have this property that did pretty well, let's like attach it to this shark script. But the third one's pretty good. The second one's absolutely awful. But the third one is pretty fun. It's the set is like it feels like an amusement park. And it's got some really good kills in it, and it's fun. But the second one's absolutely horrible.
It's sort of interesting because it sort of feels like these are in the lineage as well of, the Sharknado movies, and those kind of like that type of movie that's very much, and there was like the Piranha 3D movie that was as well that was in this, that was sort of this kind of knowing wink at the audience, like, yes, we know we're schlock, but we're going to commit, type of absurd, crazy kind of monster movie. And in some ways, this might have started that trend in a weird way. Obviously, this derives, from Jaws to some extent, although it's a very different type of movie. But that is interesting that it kind of branched off with these weird direct-to-video sequels. But let's explain why we're talking about this movie on this show. In a section that we like to call
Die Hard DNA.
So, several members of the Die Hard family are involved in this motion picture. We have, of course, actor Samuel L. Jackson, star of Die Hard with a Vengeance. Helmer Renny Harlin, director of Die Hard 2. Editor Frank J. Uriosti, one of the editors of the original Die Hard. And then, as for the actual movie itself, this was my analysis, and we'll get, you guys' thoughts. We've always said on this show, Justin, that the Die Hard paradigm, as we've defined it, is bad guys take over a blank. It's up to one guy or a small group to fight back. In this instance, sharks take over an oceanic scientific research facility, and it's up to a small group, primarily led by one man, to fight back. So
Damn sharks.
So we've got all the usual, mayhem in a contained setting. It is somewhat of a siege film. I was feeling there was that one sequence where they're going up the shaft and things are burning, debris is falling, and I was thinking, this is giving me disaster movie vibes, right?
Highlight of the movie, that sequence, I think.
Yeah, it's a good sequence. Echoes of Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure and kind of Daylight as well, actually. Some of that like ensemble trying to survive, like, in watery environments. And obviously
as he's reaching down on the ladder, obviously a Renny Harlin joint to grab her hand, and she's like, I can't. It felt very much like Harlin was referencing himself in that moment to some extent.
Ensemble cast, rough and tumble blue collar hero who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. A couple of other more obscure ones that I caught. Canoodling couples being punished. That's something that occurs at the beginning of the movie where there's like some, a bunch of like annoying, good looking people on a boat getting off with each other, and then they get eaten by sharks and punished for their sin.
Feels like Jaws a little bit.
And of course, that happens in Die Hard with there's a couple that are having sex during the party and the terrorists come in. A brief moment, I'm pretty sure that was downtown LA at the beginning. Am I right in saying that?
So here's the thing. I watched I put the commentary track on the background while I was doing other things today.
Okay.
That was shot on location, and then those are plates.
Oh, but did it say if it was LA?
It was supposed to be, they went to LA and they shot plates, and then they shot the helicopter sequence.
Because that would have been close to Nakatomi Plaza, is my point.
But it's pretty amazing because it looks really good, considering it's plates.
Yeah, I would not have realized that. So there was a bit of that stuff. There was also some corporate intrigue, slight Die Hard echoes there, big LA skyscraper, etc. Another little one, little detail. Porn mags. There's echoing the girls moment in Die Hard where Bruce sees the sort of girly pictures on the wall to orient the audience.
I was hoping you were going to get that one when LL
the floating
at the
Playboy.
Yeah.
And then characters monologuing to themselves. Bruce Willis, of course, does that throughout Die Hard. LL Cool J, who is alone for a lot of the first half of the film, monologues to himself repeatedly.
He's the McClane corollary in this movie. Corollary, excuse me. I don't know. I can't pronounce words today.
Him and Tom
really
Jane, I think.
Feels like the McClane kind of like figure.
And then the last one that I had was the use of a storm as a ticking clock, as featured in Die Hard 2, as brought to our attention again by Travis in our Snake Eyes episode, which also featured a storm as a ticking clock. Classic device. Cameron uses it amazingly in like Aliens and The Abyss, another underwater adventure movie. Those were the things that I caught. Any additions or thoughts on how this actually connects back to Die Hard and the Die Hard series?
So one I noticed was there's a little bit of like class tension in Die Hard between Thomas Jane's character and Saffron Burrows' like Elizabeth Holmes prototypical kind of like successful scientist. But there's like a little bit of, especially with him and Rappaport, guys kind of being like these fucking higher ups, and Thomas Jane complaining about Samuel Jackson being a rich guy. So there's like a little... Samuel Jackson's kind of the Takagi of this movie a little bit.
Yeah.
And Saffron Burrows is like... Well, I'm excited to talk about Saffron Burrows.
Saffron Burrows like an evil Bobby Bedelia.
evil, or even maybe like a little bit of like a Hans Gruber, but not quite Hans Gruber. It's an interesting character, and I know that they...
We'll get into her.
Her final fate was decided by a ravenous audience, test audience later on. So...
Well, do you have anything to add on that, Justin, or should we in terms of how it would connect to Die Hard?
The presence of hip hop. Like in the first Die Hard, there's the Run DMC song, and in this, of course, we get the amazing LL Cool J song in the end credits.
It's been in my head all day, and I will say that my son enjoyed this song on the drive to school this morning very much. It is great. What a great pull. That is so true. I mean, how cool is it?
I wouldn't even,
every time I watch Die Hard and that Run DMC song comes on, it just like, it reminds you, like, this film was just so, it's so cool. It's so timelessly cool. And that is the best Christmas song ever as far as I'm concerned. Let's dig into,
really?
In my opinion,
that's the best Christmas song ever.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's a take. I respect it. I mean, no Silent Night, but fine. Whatever you think.
You think Silent Night is better than that Run DMC?
I mean, I don't know if I think it's better. It's just not what I would think of first. Anyway, we digress. Let's keep the
We'll dig into
rolling.
all this we'll dive into this in a bit more detail after this quick break.
Hey guys, it's Mary from Two Judgy Girls, and get ready for a new season of the Hulu original reality series Vanderpump Villa. This season, Lisa moves Vanderpump Villa to an all-new castle in Italy. Lisa is joined by the one and only Stassi Schroeder to help keep an eye on the new and returning staff. The elite staff will face scrutiny like never before as they work and play under one roof. New castle, new guests, and new drama. Season 2 of Vanderpump Villa premieres April 24th, streaming on Hulu.
We all belong outside. We're drawn to nature, whether it's the recorded sounds of the ocean we doze off to, or the succulents that adorn our homes. Nature makes all of our lives, well, better. Despite all this, we often go about our busy lives removed from it. But the outdoors is closer than we realize. With All Trails, you can discover trails nearby and explore confidently. With offline maps and on-trail navigation, download the free app today.
And we're back with our next section of the show, Anatomy of an Action Movie, where we explore the tenets.
We live in a twilight world.
And there are no friends at dusk of an action motion picture. Justin, tenet, yay or nay? Just, we have to do a tenet temp check. It's par for the course here. Are you a fan?
I don't know.
Okay, that's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. I understand that.
I'm a fan visually, and I'm not necessarily a fan beyond that. I think it's a great experience, like a sensory experience, but I don't really buy its narrative.
Okay. Well, we think it's the greatest film ever made, but that's fine.
That's very
Everyone's
nuanced.
entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, trash, move on. So
We get a surprising amount of thumbs downs.
I would definitely buy a ticket and watch it in IMAX, but like, you know, I'm not going to sit around and dissect it because I just don't have the time.
There's almost no reason to do the second thing, in my opinion. So I understand exactly what you mean.
Fair enough. We have to ask. Okay, so the first tenet of Anatomy of an Action Movie is the premise, and the premise of Deep Blue Sea is as follows. So, at a remote underwater research facility, a team of scientists are experimenting on mako sharks in their search for a cure to Alzheimer's disease. I'm trying not to laugh.
You do.
Leading the project is the ambitious and morally conflicted Dr. Susan McAllister, who's played by Saffron Burrows, whose secret genetic tampering pushes the sharks beyond natural limits. When a violent storm cuts off communication and power, the facility begins to flood, and now these super intelligent sharks turn the base into a lethal maze. There is more than that, but that's basically the setup. And the ticking clock is that where the rapidly flooding facility is sinking into the ocean, the survivors must find a way to escape before it submerges completely, or the sharks pick them off. Now, putting aside the sort of, I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't know how much credence that has, but in terms of like using shark brains for research on Alzheimer's, but there is enough movie, whether there's real logic or not, there's enough movie logic for us to buy that as like, that makes sense in the world of like an outlandish movie. There is a logic to it. And this is kind of a brilliant premise, I will say. But what I want to ask you, Justin, is, your history with this movie goes way back. It sounded like you loved it What do you love about this movie?
There's two things I really love about this movie. One is that Warner Brothers in the late 90s committed a good amount of money to making a movie like this and giving it an R rating. And, this is like a special effects movie. It's got fairly famous people in it. They dropped it in the middle of the summer movie season. Any studio could have absolutely made this movie a PG-13 movie. Yeah. And Warner allowed the shark deaths in this to be gross. They allowed them to be pretty plentiful. And I think they really leaned into it. They let Renny Harlin do what Renny Harlin does, which is make a very unapologetic action movie for adults. So I really like that. And I also like that the movie is very dumb. I really like that it just doesn't make sense. I appreciate that. I appreciate that they don't try to go into the science of it all. They just like let it happen. And I think that is where it kind of, it's more so the sequels, but this too shares a lot of similarities with those like Sci-Fi Channel shark movies. Like it's just, here's the scenario. It's just happening because it's happening. And like, that's it. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. The intentions are murky. The science is even murkier. It's just ridiculous.
That makes a lot of sense, and you make a great point. And this is actually something that we talked about with the cliffhanger episode, that Renny comes from the horror world, right? Like his breakthrough was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Was it the fourth? The third?
The third one, right?
I think the fourth. I think the third one, is it Chuck Russell? I think it's fourth. I think it's the fourth.
It's the Dream Master.
Yeah, right? Dream Warriors is number 3, isn't it?
It's the third one. Yeah, so it's Dream Master.
So I think it's 4. I think it's 4.
4
but
is Renny, 5 is Hopkins.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
because I was just reading about
a bunch of these guys cut their teeth in
art filmmakers.
In the Nightmare on Elm Street series or in horror franchises, right? So I think that's really cool. And with Cliffhanger, we talked about how that there's stuff in that is hard horror. Like there's a horrific ice pick death in the eye or something. Really, like he
doesn't he do that in Die Hard 2 as well? There's
exactly,
the ice pick in the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Chekhov's icicle. So so he is a gore freak. He gets off on this shit, right? He kind of enjoys. So it is interesting to see them just like let him cut loose.
Let him cook.
And he's a really, there is something to be said for that, because it's like this Warner Brothers somewhat. They pump out their action programmers, but it's somewhat of a prestigious studio. So to sort of be like, you know what, we're going to spend $60 million plus on something that we know is junk in the nicest possible, it is, right? It's going to be gory and fun, and we're going to put some really good people in it, and we've got a solid director, and just like cut it loose. So I do, we talked recently as well, and Liam and I were talking about how this compares to something like Deep Rising, which was which I think is a better movie, but didn't do well. I
think so too. I think, and it's also a gorier movie, which
absolutely
is, I think saying something here.
So it's interesting that around this time they were taking shots at like, you know what, let's just go a hard R with a kind of and somewhat of an expensive and special effects heavy movie. And Deep Rising unfortunately missed on the mark in terms of the box office, although it's now had a huge kind of cult status. But this actually was a big hit. People love this, so it's really, really interesting. Liam, what are your kind of top line thoughts on it? Like as a, how do you feel about, let's start with the positives and then we can move into the more critical stuff.
No, I really enjoy this movie, and I kind of want to double down on something that Justin said, which is like, I was waiting for the moment in this movie when like there was the 3D diagram explaining how a shark's brain can cure a human brain, and it never happens, and God bless it for that. And more than that, they kind of explain the science when they're getting a little drunk at the birthday party, which I really appreciate, because it's kind of like, as you said, they don't dig into it too hard. It's kind of how like most people would want to experience that, where they're like, you're like 2 vodka tonics deep and you're kind of like trying to explain this to me. And I like that because it immediately lowers the stakes of the science, where I think that some like blockbusters now can be like overly literal with this kind of stuff. And so, that really works for me. The gore really works for me. And I think that Renny is one of the things that happens when you rewatch a lot of the movies by filmmakers in this genre is you begin to appreciate what they're really good at. And there's a moment in this movie early on in the opening, sort of Jaws inspired, Jaws, jacked up. And he says this in the commentary track. I was trying to, give an homage to Jaws. And in fact, the license plate that the shark has is the license plate from Jaws. That's a funny little tidbit, is that there's a reference there. But there's a shot of a teddy bear sinking into the water after the shark attacks the first time. And like Renny lingers on it in a way that a lesser director wouldn't. He does a lot with like the terror of that. And I think, not that directors don't do that now, but this is the like perfect amount of like legit kind of Renny Harlin-esque horror mixed with like a big dumb premise with cool movie stars doing it. And I can't really complain about it. And I think I also can't complain about, it's gory as hell. Stellan Skarsgård's arm gets bit off, like, and he piles around on the ground before like being used to like break a window pane open. Like, nothing to complain about on my end in this movie. I think it really kicks ass.
Well, I'll give the things I like, and then I'm going to say things I don't like, right? For balance, right? I like that it is this B-movie fun thing. It has an interesting cast, and there's some of the actors in it I actually really love. I will get to them, but I love Thomas Jane in this, and I love LL Cool J in this, and obviously Samuel Jackson's
incredible.
Great. And the choice, I think one of the things this film is probably most remembered for was the boldness of the choice. And we've already kind of spoiled it. And hopefully, we're 26 years later. But the scene where Samuel Jackson gives this rousing speech and is then immediately eaten by a shark at kind of the midpoint was a kind of brilliant choice, was like a really bold move, And I think the thinking behind that was partly, as I understand it, the Alien as an ensemble movie with, Sigourney Weaver at that time was an unknown. Tom Skerritt and John Hurt and some of the other actors were a bit more recognizable. And when the more recognizable actors were killed off earlier, it leaves the audience very disarmed and very, because that nobody is safe, right? So I think he was sort of channeling that technique. So I thought that was great, and I agree with like the end credit needle drop is fantastic. I love that. Here's why I'm less keen on the fucking atrocious CGI that has aged horribly.
Some of it's bad. Some of it's okay.
Some of the animatronic stuff is actually pretty decent. But the actual CGI, some of the CGI effects are absolutely atrocious. But okay, that happens. That's just like of its time. You can kind of get past that. But here's what I'm really interested in your opinion on this, Justin, is like, I'm watching this. The first half an hour, I was like, this is playing like Starship Troopers without the irony. It actually is like terrible for half an hour. And I was like, the taste level of this is shocking. But I'm trying to kind of figure out like, how much are you in on the joke, and how much are you just confused about what this is? And so I was like, because it was so tacky and it was so corny and it was so kind of just like dumb, but not in a good way for a time. And then I think it sort of found its rhythm. And we were sort of like, oh, okay, we're just all kind of goofing off and having fun. The other part of this, and why I preface this is my own subjective thing, and I do want to get your opinion. I want to hand this over to you. But Liam and I have talked before. I kind of struggle a lot with irony in movies because I'm such a purist or a British tight ass or whatever. But I don't really like winking at the camera. I kind of like films that are fully committed to the reality that they're presenting. And I struggle with it because this has become now very much like in a certain type of movie, the de facto style, to the point of like meta beyond meta, to the point of like it's become almost meaningless. There's just too much self-referentiality. not to say there are films.
You're
that do
an
that.
old soul, Phil. You're an old soul.
There are films that do that brilliantly, like the Scream movie. For, the first few Scream movies. I think it's not that I'm totally averse to it, and I'm not. Obviously, we talked about Brecht and everything, but generally speaking, I have a hard time with winking at the camera type movies. How much of this do you feel like is intentional? How much of it is accidental? I'd just love you to kind of unpack like what you think they're trying to do and how much of it they achieved, or did they fall short, or did they hit the bullseye? How do you feel about just its sort of tonal approach with this slight kind of detached irony? Ha ha ha, this is all a joke, who gives a shit, like whistling through the graveyard attitude.
I mean, I think it's silly. I don't know that this movie was ever made to be a serious movie. It's not Jaws. And I think one of the benefits, it has going for it is any shark movie made after Jaws is inevitably going to be compared to Jaws. But to me, what Renny does well here is instead of trying to match Jaws, like in any way, I think he's going for Jurassic Park. Like, this feels like Jurassic Park. And for a number of reasons, like narratively too, but also just in like its vibe. And if you look at Renny's films that he was making in the 90s, right before this, he did Long Kiss Goodnight, which I love. And before that, he did Cutthroat Island, which I also love, despite everybody thinking it's terrible. But both of those movies and Die Hard 2 have humor. And you can say the same thing for Cliffhanger. Like, there's a pretty strong through line, I think, in the majority of Renny's films, outside of maybe something like Prison, which is like really grim, or even Mindhunters, which he did like a few years after Deep Blue Sea, which I think is great. But outside of like a couple isolated incidents, the majority of his movies have like a strong level of humor. And I think that's here. LL Cool J's character is basically comic relief, like everything with him and the bird. The deaths are so exaggerated. And, we talked about like Samuel L. Jackson gives that speech and he dies. But you also have Stellan Skarsgård has a really gruesome fate early on in the film, and he's like just a couple of years removed from Good Will Hunting, which is how most Americans probably know him. And he was in this like, big Oscar movie, and now he's in this big summer shark movie, and then he like dies really early on. And I think that's kind of Renny playing with the audience. And it's more shocking to me that Warner allowed that. That Warner were like, we're going to pay whatever these people's salaries are, and then we're going to kill them early on in this movie. And to me, that is like them being in on the joke. Yeah. And the punchline to me is the LL Cool J song. When that hits, that needle drop in the credits, you're like, okay, this is all a joke. The lyrics to that song are just insane. It's like an insane Clown Posse song. He's like talking about like people's hands being ripped off, and like it's like a horror song.
It is. We talked about this with Stakeout, speaking of John Badham, about the importance of, if you nail that last needle drop, everybody walks to their cars feeling the right way. And there's a real art to it, to getting that last song correct, because you are bottling the mood that people are leaving the theater with, and then that's like your potential for word of mouth. And I remember how, because I love LL Cool J, and when we do the hard way on 48 Hours of Buddy Movies, I'll go deep on LL Cool J, but I'll save it for today. But I do remember that song as being one of my favorite parts of this movie, because it leaves you kind of going like, that was fun, so you articulated that beautifully, and I certainly wouldn't disagree. I think it's more just a taste thing for me, as I struggle with things that are ha ha ha, it's all a joke.
It's interesting to like to think about it this way, because like you do kind of realize that like in 1999, like movies mattered more and less at the same time. And what I mean when I say that is like going to, like, you could go to a 2-screener at noon and be like, oh, there's Inspector there's the kids movie, and there's the grisly action horror, kind of comedy sort of movie that exists there. And you'd go see it, and you'd move on to it, and a week later you'd see like whatever happened to come out that year. And 99 is obviously a banger year, but like it's kind of like we took movies like it was kind of like, yeah, that was like a cool 2 hours. I had a great time. It was like kind of silly. It was gross at times. Like, and it was what I like now to come back. You know, part of the reason we decided to come back and cover this is because it's getting this Arrow 4K release. And I think what's nice about those releases is they bottled up like, yeah, this was like kind of just a summer drop, a July drop. So high season in movies. And it's both like a good time and a very silly time at the same time, and it's fun to revisit. And I'm curious to see what that 4K looks like because they do such beautiful work.
Yeah, I got it. It's beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, I suppose it was a time where there was like, there's something for everybody. It's like, to quote Forrest Gump, it's sort of like a box of chocolates, right? There's like a different flavor for everything. If you want Inspector Gadget, there's that. If you want this hard-edged action horror movie that with his tongue wedged firmly in his cheek, there's that. If you want prestige, there's that. There's more movies being made. With decent budgets that there is, it's not, there's something for everyone.
It's the center of culture. I was saying to my daughter the other day, I was like, oh, let's go to the movies. And she was like, I'd rather watch it at home. And I was like, why? And she was like, oh, because you make better popcorn than the movie theater. And it's like, she just doesn't have, even though I try, she doesn't have the same.
In about 1,000 ways.
Yeah, but I think that part of it is that it was like, an activity for, it still is an activity for people, but like there was almost no question, like, yeah, we're on vacation. Let's go see Deep Blue Sea on like a Saturday afternoon.
It's also the summer of 99 is insane. Like if you think back on it, it was like Star Wars Episode 1 was that summer. American Pie, the South Park movie. I remember seeing Eyes Wide Shut with my mother because I wasn't old enough to get in. And like, these were like, that summer is like unreal when you like look back at like what the summer of 99 was. There's nothing else really like it.
Diverse selection of stuff. Well, let's move into our hero section because I'm actually really excited to talk about this guy. And by the way, I'm saying, obviously this is an ensemble cast, but as I see it, the hero of this movie is Thomas Jane as Carter Blake. So I'm excited to talk about him because I love Thomas Jane. And he's kind of a complex figure, in Hollywood, a bit of an iconoclast. And, kind of it feels like to tell the story of his career to some extent. And I'm sure you would have thoughts on this, but I'm just going to set the table. So he has this great part in Boogie Nights as Todd, right? Memorable. One of the guys with Mark Wahlberg that goes in and robs the coke dealer, and he's like a real live wire in that. And he's like very memorable, but a huge ensemble, right? This one again, and that's 2 years prior, 97. In this movie, it's an ensemble movie. It's marketed as if it's a Samuel L. Jackson movie with a few, familiar faces around him. But actually, he is the hero. He's the protagonist. But the movie he doesn't have to carry the movie on his back because Samuel L. Jackson is going to do that. And Samuel L. Jackson is going to get the asses in the seats, right? So it's a great position for him. And then he goes on and has his shot at being a kind of a leading man. Because I think he's terrific in this. I really do think he's like, he carries the right level of, he's like good looking. He's kind of the cowboy outsider type. He's kind of low key, charismatic. I buy him doing that job. Like a shark wrangler. Yeah. I buy that because he just seems like a kind of a surfer, rough and tumble dude. And I've always liked him. And what I'm interested to get your thoughts on, and I wonder how familiar you guys are with his big shot at leading stardom in The Punisher, and then the Punisher short film, Dirty Laundry, that he self-financed. Do you guys know much about that?
No, because I've never been a Punisher guy.
Okay.
I've never seen The Punisher.
So I did some research about this. So he gets his big shot at a leading man in essentially a superhero, Marvel comic, iconic character, which had previously been made in 1989 with Dolph Lundgren playing the Punisher. Punisher being on the much more hard-edged, more graphic novel-y end of the Marvel comics, repertoire, and it doesn't do well. It's not good. John Travolta is in it as the bad guy. Roy Scheider is in it as his dad. There's some pedigree around it. The movie is perceived by fans to be kind of soft, especially for this character that is a particularly violent revenge-driven character. The whole point is his family are killed, and he goes and gets revenge brutally on the monsters that do it. Right? It's like a 70s revenge movie, but in the harder edge of the Marvel Comics world. But it was kind of a bit toothless, and it didn't go hard enough for the fans, and it isn't great. So he was like contracted to do a sequel, and he was like, guys, this is not this isn't going in the right direction, right? This is not what this character should be. And in the end, he refused to do the sequel, backed out of it, burnt a lot of bridges. But to prove his point, he self-financed a short film of The Punisher that's called The Punisher Dirty Laundry, which is fantastic. It's 10 minutes. Ron Perlman is in it. It's directed by Phil Jono, and it features music from The Dark Knight. And but he was basically like, this is what The Punisher should be, and he absolutely nails it. It's awesome, and fans loved it, and then there was like a clamoring around it. But it kind of like broke his career because studios and they don't like it when you do that. Right? Like they have a valuable franchise, and they end up making Punisher Warzone with Ray Stevenson, and it does really badly, and it's really badly.
Yeah, but it's great.
Received,
it's so
right?
much better.
I know it
than
has
Thomas
fans,
Jane
right?
one.
Yeah, I know
so
it has
much
fans,
better.
and Patton Oswalt has been like a big advocate of it as well. But Thomas Jane basically has kind of had this like very, very unstable, crazy kind of career path, but was set for stardom, but went on to, for me, his greatest ever performance is The Mist, which I think is one of the best horror films of all time. And he's exceptional in that as the lead in that ensemble.
The dark movie. Jeez.
That messed
that
me
ending.
up when I first saw it. I won't say what the ending is, but don't watch it on a hangover or if you're feeling depressed. I'll just say that. It's absolutely unforgiving, but an uncompromising film. But what do you guys, that's my sort of 2 cents on Thomas Jane. I'm a fan of his. He's had a kind of crazy career path. I kind of dig that some of his like outsider choices that were pretty brave and possibly to his own detriment. And he does seem like an eccentric guy, but he's like his own man. What are your guys' thoughts on him in this part and him as a figure in the, in the movie culture in general? Starting with you, Justin.
I really like him in this. I think at that time when this came out, the only thing I really knew him from was Boogie Nights, which is a movie probably most people knew him from, but I was also, I was young. Like, I probably shouldn't have seen Boogie Nights when Deep Blue Sea had come out, but that's really where I knew him. And it was, in the same year, or maybe it was slightly before it, he did, I want to say Saving Private Ryan, but it's the other one, Thin Red Line. He's in Thin Red Line, which is massive ensemble. So he's kind of like, I don't want to say he's lost in it because he's good in it, but you can't really stand out in that movie. It's not, there's just too many moving pieces and moving parts. But I like him. To me, I think, The Mist is great. I really like him in Stander. Did you ever see Stander?
Oh, the South African. Yeah, that was one of his biggest acclaimed
really
parts.
Good in that.
That's
good
movie.
Right before The Punisher. And I remember like when he came up, because he's like, the poster for that movie is just like his face.
Yeah.
And that felt like, okay, he's going to be like a big deal now. And then The Punisher came out and it was bad. Nobody really cared about it. And he had The Mist, which was good. He's great in The Mist. Like, just all around great movie, great casting for him. But I don't know, I feel like he's never gotten like a fair shot. His career lately has been like very all over the place. It's a lot of bit parts or starring roles in like DTV movies. He did one a couple of years ago that I did really like that was direct to video, which was One Ranger, directed by Jesse V. Johnson, who's like, kind of up there with like Isaac Florentine as one of those great DTV, like vulgar auteur directors. And that's a great movie. It's like, not a great movie, but it's a great example of like what he can do, which is just like this very surly action performance. And, he's older now. Like we're going 60, on like 25 years. So like, it's the kind of role that like feels right for him now. It's almost in like it's like a more action geared kind of like Hell or High Water type of thing, and I think he really fits that mold now where he can play those roles.
It feels like he would fit in the Taylor Sheridan kind of world.
He would,
you know.
Yeah, I would
right?
love to see him in a show like Lawman or something. You know, I think that would be like a really good use of his talents.
Totally.
But as far as Deep Blue Sea is concerned, I think he's really suave and he fits that role. He has, you know, the timing for some of the comedy, but I think he just carries like the physicality of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad. I love him in this, and I'm a fan. So you know that's great to hear, and I love your knowledge of all of the you know the DTV world and all of this sort of stuff, because there can be, you know, there are emerging like exciting filmmakers that are cutting their teeth in that world now, like Renny and Stephen Hopkins were cutting their teeth in, you know, in horror franchises. But what are you a Tom Jane guy, Liam, or no?
Well, I'm looking, as you guys have been talking, I've been looking at his Wikipedia. Speaking of Stephen Hopkins, he's in Under Suspicion.
Yes.
Which I had forgotten about. But I'm looking at this like 1997 to 2000 era. Or actually, let me go back a little bit further, and I'll indulge me while I list this because I think it's interesting. So in 97, he's in Boogie Nights. He also plays Burke Hicks in a little movie called Face Off that we sometimes forget about.
Of course.
He's got a small part in Face Off as the kind
Where
of
was you got wasted?
guy. And he's great. He's in The Velocity of Gary, which is a movie that I remember a little bit. He's in Deep Blue Sea. He plays, and this is really interesting to me, guys. He plays young Jimmy Gator in Magnolia. He's in Magnolia for like all of a few seconds as a young Jimmy Gator. And Original Sin, which, you know, peaked Angelina Jolie, kind of like sex symbol era. He's in Dreamcatcher. He's in The Sweetest Thing. He's in Stander, as you pointed out. And the thing that's really interesting is that, like, he might have a little bit of the, like, Brad Pitt handsome character actor supporting genius that never quite transitioned into the... Because some of these movies I remember the VHS boxes more than I maybe remember the movies themselves. And so I think for a long time I was like, oh yeah, that Thomas Jane guy. He never kind of was like, and even in The Mist, as good as The Mist is, I think the most memorable thing, I think he's great in that movie, is the woman, the amazing actress who plays the preacher,
Marcia Gay Harden.
Marcia Gay Harden kind of owns that whole movie. She kind of walks away with it, right? At the same time, he does Hung on HBO for a while. So like, It is a little bit of a bummer because he never really solidified this like leading man career that I think he could have had. And I actually think, Justin, to your point about Jurassic Park, the character that he reminds me of is Robert Muldoon. Like he feels like Muldoon from Jurassic Park a little bit, this kind of like big game hunter type. And I think it's tricky because this is a noisy movie with a noisy cast, and LL Cool J gets to do a lot of really cool stuff. I think there's a little bit of an imbalance between sort of who the lead of the movie, like, because LL Cool J's off by himself talking to
Well, it feels like the audiences were just loving what LL Cool... I just imagine the test scores for LL Cool J were like off the charts, so they were like, let's get more LL, like, you know, in the movie, and even having just fucking around with parrots, like, we love it.
He's kind of, and he's kind of the quiet type in this movie. He sort of plays the, like, straight man who has to be stoic, and meanwhile, LL Cool J gets the best shark murder in the movie. Shark murder, what a sentence. When he lights the shark on fire. Like, if that had been Thomas Jane, like, because LL Cool J is like a charisma vacuum. He's just so... He sucks up everything because he's so charismatic. And like, it's not that Thomas Jane isn't, but it's hard to stand out when you kind of have to play the straight man. This movie might have like a bit of a protagonist imbalance. And I think that could have kind of hurt it a little bit. Yeah.
I think that's all really fair. But you know, the Jurassic Park comp as well, it was so on point, because I remember thinking the scene where LL is like trapped in the kitchen, right? And then at one point he gets trapped in like the oven. Great set piece.
Under siege, under siege.
And the Jurassic Park like stuff at the end with the raptors, you know, where they like have to hide in the kitchen and in the like cupboards and stuff, and that sort of stuff. So I think that is right. It is basically the monsters got out of the cages and now they're running amok. So Jurassic Park is a great comp. Of course, both and Jaws are Spielberg movies.
You know what needs to happen is he needs Paul Thomas Anderson to write him a Jimmy Gator adult-esque part.
Oh my
gosh. Now in like his next movie to give him not a Magnolia sequel.
That shows though that Paul Thomas Anderson's taste with the actors that he was plucking. This is a guy that kind of discovered to some extent Phil Seymour Hoffman, right? I mean, he'd done Scent of Women,
and Riley,
right?
and he brought Philip Baker Hall back.
Yeah, exactly. He gave his first John C. Reilly, he had like amazing taste in actors, and gave them great stuff to do. So the fact that he was like put Tom Jane amongst that group of like Phil Seymour Hoffman and those emerging actors kind of says a lot about him. He kind of reminds me of Mickey Rourke actually, in the kind of like career that he's had, where guys that don't really like to play by the rules sometimes sort of find it hard to fit in a system that demands and expects you to yield. And when guys don't do that, the system can be quite brutal to navigate. But they still find ways to kind of do it their own way for right or wrong. I want to talk about the lady / the villain. I don't know if this is a Tom Jones situation or not.
Whoa, she's
a
lady.
I like
Every
it
time
when
I sing, people are like, what is happening?
But I like it when you do that. It's like you say the name of the actor at the end of it.
Yeah, that's true.
I enjoy how you put a little bit of
Saffron
sauce
Burrows. Saffron Burrows had an interesting 1999. Do you guys know what other movie Saffron Burrows was a co-lead of in 1999?
Fucking Wing Commander.
Exactly. She's in Wing Commander. Now, I love Wing Commander. I was obsessed with those games as a kid. I bought my own. Yeah, I bought my own. My dad was like, "You want to play Wing Commander? You buy the graphics card." Like I was like very committed to it. Price of Freedom and Heart of the Tiger are like huge. I read the novelizations. I was obsessed with it. I have never seen the movie because I was like, if it's not Mark Hamill and Tom Wilson, I'm not interested. So I've never seen it.
It's bad, but it's not that bad. Like
okay.
It has its pleasures. If you've played the games, it's probably more enjoyable to watch than it would be if you've never played the games.
Okay. Maybe I'll go back and do it, but
so is she, let's cut to the chase here. What do you think of her performance in this movie? Justin, do you want to go first? Like, I have my thoughts. I'm going to hold them back. Like, is she good? Is she not good? What do you think? Like, how does she fare in this picture?
I think she's fine. Honestly, I don't think. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've seen her in that I've been like blown away by her performance. I think she's pretty good in The Bank Job. And I think she's like, that's probably to me, I think like her best performance or best role that she's been given. Deep Blue Sea, it's weird because, I would say Thomas Jane's the star of that movie. Like, completely. LL Cool J, like, fights for it, but I think it's Thomas Jane's movie.
Yeah.
But Saffron Burrows is who's on the poster.
Yep.
And it's, for that movie, you almost don't need a human on the poster. Like, it could have just been a shark, and it would have sold just as well as it did. Like, that movie did not sell tickets because of Saffron Burrows being on the poster, and it didn't sell tickets to Thomas Jane and LL Cool J fans. Maybe LL Cool J fans, but I don't know. I don't think, if she's being billed as, like, the lead of that movie by virtue of her placement on the poster, I don't think she is the star of it. Like, I don't think her performance is captivating enough for that. And it's a weird role to balance just because of what she's doing in it. At first she seems like a benevolent person, and then it turns out she's not. And I don't know that comes through her performance. I think it comes through through dialogue, but I don't think it comes through like in her mannerisms.
She doesn't really change, does she? Liam, what do you? I'll hold back my theory, but I want to give you a chance to. Throw your tuppence in.
Look, I love it. Tuppence. It's a dry performance. It's not the most deep. She does like have a character arc to some extent in that she learns to regret this decision. I think it's extreme that she dies at the end of the movie. She does have like a pretty good final girl scene when she takes that shark out and electrocutes it to death. Like, I think that's a pretty, and she stands on her wetsuit. It's like very clever and very smart. my relationship to Saffron Burrows is interesting because I grew up in a house that was obsessed with all things Ireland, Irish Catholic from Boston. And she's in 2 like late 90s movies, Circle of Friends and The Matchmaker, which was like kind of a Janine Garofalo rom-com that like I think has like largely been forgotten, which is crazy to me. And in those movies, she always plays the kind of like deceptive girl. Like she's always the girl that seems to have another agenda. She's kind of the if I remember correctly, the villain in The Matchmaker. So this feels like an interesting role for her. And she does appear later in 2 Mike Figgis movies, Miss Julie, based on the play, which is a pretty good movie, and Time Code, which is like a totally fascinating experiment. So in terms of this performance, I don't think it's her best, but I think she gets better throughout the film, through the course of the movie. And then when she dies, it's like, and apparently, Phil, you were telling me that was a test screening. They like, she
what I
lived
read
originally.
about it was that the audience hated her character.
Interesting.
And so they reshot the ending because they wanted her to die. They wanted someone to blame because she's sort of the mad scientist archetype, but because it's played in a strange way, it doesn't really like.
Yeah.
I'll explain my theory in a second, but yeah, the audience did not like her character, so that was changed so that she could die, as I understand it. They wanted. Audiences are funny in these
They
movies
want blood.
Like
they want blood.
They have a kind of bloodlust, and they're like in a monster movie and a thing like that. And if you have a character that it's, again, speaking of the character's name is Carter Blake, which reminded me of Carter Burke in Aliens. The audience wants Paul Reiser in Aliens to fucking die because it's his fucking fault. Right.
Yeah.
So if you have to if you're gonna do that, it's sort of horror movie rules, right? Like if you're the piece of shit that's like screwing everybody over and has caused this situation, the audience demands some kind of blood sacrifice.
I guess it is her fault.
So can I say my theory is, because I was watching it. So I'm watching the scenes with her in the boardroom, which, as you said, Justin, are like, seems like a benevolent person, makes her character interesting. She tells us there's a really well written piece of dialogue.
Good motivation.
Where she says, have you ever known anybody with Alzheimer's? And she gives this harrowing and heartbreaking story about having to tell her father this awful thing again and again. But here's my so I'm watching that, but I'm like, this isn't working. Why? Because I'm not watching it going like, you're bad. So I'm like, what's going on here? Why is this not clicking? And then here's my theory is, she is not tonally in sync with the movie and the rest of the ensemble, right? The rest of the ensemble realize we're in a junky shark movie. This is silly, it's fun, it's gory, and it's just a good time. Like as you said, Justin, a crowd pleaser. And she's playing it like she's in Oppenheimer. Right? It is so fucking dry.
It's very dry.
She doesn't smile once in this movie. She is so humorless and joyless that it kind of, like you're saying, it sort of sucks the air out of it. She just can't. So she is not in sync with the movie or the rest of the cast, and that's why it stands out as like this is odd. We're bouncing off it. So that was my. So in her defense, I'm saying it's not a bad performance. It's just not. It's not in sync, and it's not tonally calibrated to the kind of film that she's in and the actors around her, and that's why it just feels incongruous and out of place. So I don't know if you agree with that, but that's my kind of theory on that. The action.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's like a fair assessment. And I it's even in the scenes where she's kind of flirting with Thomas Jane, they never quite like go where they need to go with that, right? Like it doesn't quite link up and clearly work.
No, it's not. It doesn't really work. But as you said, I think she's fine. Yeah. That's the extent of it. The action. One of the other tenets that we examine. What are your favorite? Start with you, Justin. What's your favorite like action moment or set piece or kill in this movie?
I really like the whole sequence with the helicopter towards the beginning. You know, when they're evacuating or not medvacing him out, Skarsgård, and that whole sequence with the shark like throwing him into the glass. I think that's the best sequence in the movie.
It's a brilliant set piece. That's the kind of thing that like gets a movie greenlit. You know what I mean? Like that stuff on the page is so like wow. I mean, that poor guy. I have thoughts about that in a later section, but I agree. That is that is a brilliant like sequence. Liam, what do you think about this film on an action level, and do you have it as a favorite set piece?
I think the action in this movie is really great. It's really fun. It's like well staged. It's Renny chaos. You know, it works really well in that sense. My favorite really is the is LL Cool J in the oven with the shark. I just think that like gets to the movie's total absurdity. And the fact that he like lights a Zippo and throws it and blows the shark up is like, that's the juice, man. Like, that's why you go to that, and Stellan Skarsgård getting pushed against the glass. And like, that's one of those moments, those two moments, you know, looking back on it, we're like, we're really dumb, but there's like a solid chance that 99.9% of the audience had not only never seen that before, but had never conceived that you would do that in a movie. Right. And that's what's kind of cool about this, is that it's like, it really is a die-hard, kind of a junk horror film fused with this like die-hard kind of like really aggressive action energy that works really, really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, as Stephen E. D'Souza said about Renny Harlin, like, he is a great shooter. You know, he has a great sense of how to stage an action sequence. You know, these set pieces are inventive, clever. You know, the idea of being stuck in an oven in a room that's flooding, and then the oven turns on. I mean, that is like great. And that is very Die Hard. Like, put your character in a box, you know, and have them figure out a way out, you know?
Can we do a quick digression here? Because I'm curious for your guys' thoughts on this. Have you heard who's attached to Cliffhanger 2 as the director? It's Colette Serra.
Okay.
Who, you know, directed Carry On most recently, but just has The Woman in the Yard come out, and started his career with Orphan. And he has this kind of like, and I agree with it, this reputation, like cinephiles love this guy. Like, one of my favorite things in the world is Adam Naiman, you know, like really erudite, smart critic, being a huge Colette Serra guy. And I think there's something, I don't know if they're the total commonality, but I do feel like Colette Serra has a little bit of Renny Harlin in him, in the way he kind of makes these horror movies, but he also makes action films. And like, I actually think he's a pretty inspired choice for Cliffhanger 2, because I think he understands what Renny probably did with that movie. And just the horror action overlap, of those two guys. Justin, are you a Colette Serra guy?
Yeah, I do really want to see Woman in the Yard, and I haven't yet.
Me too. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and just capping off that point, I think what's interesting about Renny Harlin as an action director sometimes is that because of his horror background and because of his kind of a gore hound, that he likes to be a little bit transgressive. You know, hence the Samuel L. Jackson, like, kill the sacred cows, essentially. Like, he likes to be kind of perverse. And that does make for a fun experience, especially in a movie like this. The last section, our last tenet, is the humor, and this film is pretty funny.
LL Cool J.
What are what's your favorite like comedic moment in this movie? How do you feel it kind of works as on a comedic level, and what's your favorite kind of comedic moment, if you have one?
I mean, the best comedy in this is the end credits sound, but pretty much anything with LL Cool J. I really like his, like, there's a scene where he's like preaching, and I think he refers to the sharks as demon fish. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Demon fish is good. Yeah, I like the scene when he starts a video blog.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And he just like says like, I have to impart this lesson to you. And he's like, omelets are good with 2 eggs, not 3. And something he said, don't add milk to an omelet. Like, I just think that, like, in the best way, it's like he might as well wink at the camera at that moment. Like, we know what we're doing here, but like, he sells it. He's so funny. And like, you know, I think in a way maybe we'll get to this, but he like makes up for Rappaport a little in this movie, who you could see conceivably be the comic relief, but it's just like, with respect, so Michael Rappaport that like it kind of like gets in the way.
Just to touch on this for a second, like, Michael Rappaport plays a guy who says he's been to Caltech, and I'm like, why is Leland Orser not available? Like, what are we doing here? Michael Rappaport has been to Caltech.
I'm
he's a scientific genius. Like, he doesn't fit at all in this world. It's ludicrous. He's so wrong for the part, man.
That's interesting. But Michael Rappaport is like, you know, he's has like quite an interesting career. You know, Samuel Jackson is all over the original commentary track for this movie, and he kind of like pays a lot of respect to Rappaport because, you know, he's in things like Higher Learning. He's been in a couple Woody Allen movies at this point.
True Romance, Kiss of Death. He was killing it in the 90s.
Yeah.
He's doing great stuff. It's not a diss on him. I just think he's totally miscast.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, it is interesting who ends up in this movie, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird fit because he is like screams New York guy, like he's just so New York, for better or for worse.
Sometimes like casting against type can be fun, and sometimes it's just like just get Leland Orser, just fuck. This isn't, you know, you're not reinventing the wheel here. Like, you need the nerdy scientist who knows how much, because he's asking him, like, and how to, you know, give me the technical amount of what the how high the fences are. And he's like, well, it's, give me a few minutes and I'll get back to you with the details. It's like, this is not Michael Rappaport, man. Like, this just doesn't work. You know, like, sometimes
the studio
on the nose is good. You know, so that was weird. Let's move into our Die Hard Oscars and hand out some awards for this magnificent motion picture. Starting with the John McClane Yippee Award for Best Line. I have 3 nominees. Feel free to add. Speaking of Michael Rappaport, one of them was this total trailer moment. When they bring up the shark and he goes, did someone order the fish?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's in the trailer. Yeah, that's the kind of movie that we're all watching. We're all having a good time.
I wrote that one down.
Well, I thought, again, actually, there's occasionally some really strong writing where Carter, Tom Jane's character, says, what you've done is take God's oldest killing machine and given it will and desire. And I thought that was like really good, you know, muscular writing. And then at the end, when LL says, Carter, bring me some sushi, you know, a lot of fish puns. I'm a fan of fish pun based humor. Those were the only
who
3.
Among us, you know?
Who among us is immune to such delights? Those are the 3 that I picked. Do you have a pick or an additional line that you love in this movie, Justin?
I like it when the parrot swears at LL Cool J. Like, doesn't he says like the parrot says like, yeah, he says like, eat me, asshole. And he says that LL Cool J has like a big fat butt. Like, I don't know. It's just like so out of left field. It's like, why is this parrot talking about LL's butt?
I just also like that the parrot's name is Bird. Like, just Bird. You couldn't give him, like, you couldn't name him like Leland Orser or whatever. I don't know. Give him a name. Like, give him kind of a I wrote down the worst line in the movie, which is at one point, Michael Rappaport goes, "How's Miss Smarty Pants?" referring to Saffron Burrows, and you're just like, oh my goodness.
Says the guy that went to Caltech and is a genius himself. Like,
I think it's got to be, did someone order the fish? I mean, it doesn't get better than that. That's
it does say the kind of movie that the experience that they want us to have. Okay, let's go with that one. The Hans Gruber Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film. Which excludes the lead. So we've got Michael Rappaport as Tom Scoggins, Jacqueline McKenzie as Jan Higgins, Ida Totoro as Brenda Kearns, Stellan Skarsgård as Jim Whitlock, and Bookie's favorite LL Cool J as Sherman Preacher Dudley. Who would you guys nominate for the Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film? Starting with you, Justin.
LL Cool J, hands down.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to be featured in this. In my head, he was a lead, but you're right, because otherwise it's Stellan, because I love my guy Stellan Skarsgård. But yeah, it's LL Cool J. LL Cool J walks away with the movie.
Let's not waste any time on it. He's fantastic. He's kind of the best part of this whole experience. And he is so, and to the point about like how Saffron Burrows is not dialed into the tone, he is 1,000% locked in to what this movie is. And that speech with the whole omelet thing is like, just tells you exactly, like he knows the movie he's in, and his performance is like perfect for that.
Can you imagine how fun it must have been to like shoot his solo stuff with the bird? Like, it just must have been a blast.
I mean, he's just so charismatic. The Dick Thornburg Award for Dick of the Movie. The Sharks. I don't know the name, sorry, but Saffron Burrows as Susan McAllister, Samuel L. Jackson as Russell Franklin for funding this whole cockamamie enterprise. But my pick for Dick of the Movie is Ronny Cox as Dick Jones.
You took my answer. Yeah, Ronny Cox shows up as Dick Jones and has no lines of dialogue.
Well, he had to have just been like, there was some corporate intrigue bullshit they just cut out. And they were like, they have to leave the scene in, and it's surreal, right?
It's really funny.
So weird. So Ronny Cox
Yeah.
is my pick as Dick Jones, but Justin, would you have a pick for Dick of the movie?
I mean, I feel like narratively it has to be Saffron.
Yeah,
just
that's true.
based on how everything goes down.
Yes.
That's fair. That's a fair pick. But man, it's just so great that Ronny Cox is in this movie playing a Verhoeven character for like 8 seconds. It's great.
With no dialogue.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
weird.
And he's just kind of like looking around, not sure what he's doing.
I hope he got paid really well for that, because that's such a waste of such a great actor.
He had to take a break from playing the banjo because that's what he does most of the time. Now, a big banjo player. Best
death presented by Marco.
No more table. Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate. Need to do an old school one.
Bringing it back. We're bringing it back.
Like, I was going to do a shark, like, ah.
Now, this is a good movie for deaths.
Yes.
There's quite a lot, but I've picked 3. Stellan Skarsgård going through Rasputin levels of prolonged brutality. He gets his arm bitten off, gets dropped in the sea during a helicopter medevac, dragged through the ocean by a shark, then turned into a human battering ram, all while still alive before ultimately, we assume, drowning. That one, pretty darn good. Then the sudden and shocking demise of Samuel L. Jackson immediately after delivering a rousing speech, being basically chomped in half. And then the final shark being blown up spectacularly by some kind of madcap contraption. I mean, there is something very visually satisfying about like the ocean exploding with blood and shark meat in a giant nuclear explosion in the sea. So it's actually it delivers on the kills. Right. What would be your pick for best death, Justin?
I think the Stellan Skarsgård one, just because I think it sets up the movie. It's like when that happens, you know what you're in for at that point. Because otherwise you can enter that movie like not really knowing how mean it's going to be. And it really, announces itself like minutes in once that happens.
Yeah. It's really mean-spirited. I got to go with LL Cool J killing the shark in the oven. I'm sorry. It's just like I rewound that 3 times. I was like, I can't get enough of this moment. It's
you ate my bird. That's a real thing that happened. Yes, some great deaths. I think I'd go with Stellan Skarsgård for genuine, like, brutal and gruesome creativity
you guys are right.
of that sequence. Is very, very good, like writing and directing within the milieu of this crazy movie. Let's take one last quick break and then wrap things up with Double Jeopardy trivia, where the scores can really change. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Mary from Two Judgy Girls, and get ready for a new season of the Hulu original reality series Vanderpump Villa. This season, Lisa moves Vanderpump Villa to an all-new castle in Italy. Lisa is joined by the one and only Stassi Schroeder to help keep an eye on the new and returning staff. The elite staff will face scrutiny like never before as they work and play under one roof. New castle, new guests, and new drama. Season 2 of Vanderpump Villa premieres April 24th, streaming on Hulu.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
And we're back with our final section of the show, the Double Jeopardy Trivia Quiz. So the rules are very simple. 3 quiz questions. You guys can collaborate, take your time. You can parse out your thoughts as you can think out loud and work together to solve them. And you can also have a clue whereby you can phone a friend, a.k.a.
Who would we phone in this movie?
Al
Would
Powell.
we phone
Ada
Ronny
Totoro?
Cox?
Phone Ronny Cox. Get Dick Jones on the line. Just don't say anything else. The lawyers will be right there. Jeez, you really screwed up.
Really screwed up, Bob.
Okay, question number 1. Samuel L. Jackson and LL Cool J would reunite on screen in which 2003 Philly special action movie?
Oh, okay. Yeah, never mind. I know what this is. Justin, do you know what this is?
This takes place in Philly.
No, sorry, that's an obnoxious in-joke about my proclivities within certain
It takes
action
place
movies.
in the city that Phil and I are in, however.
There is a clue available if you need it.
Yeah, I think I got it. I'm just going to say it. It's SWAT.
Is correct.
Right, fucking SWAT.
They're both in that.
A movie I
that's another one
rewatched
with a
recently
bunch
on
of,
Netflix.
The movie
That's
I've
a
watched
direct-to-video
15
sequel.
times.
Yeah, there are like a
That's
million.
another one,
direct-to-video
right?
sequels.
That's another one with
Yeah,
weird
they're pretty
DTV
good.
sequels.
Like they're like shockingly good. They're honestly probably better than SWAT.
Huh.
I remember seeing that was a summer movie. That was like an August movie. I remember bringing some friends and they were like, "Really, this SWAT? This is worse than when you brought us to Jurassic Park 3." And I was like, "You're all wrong. These movies are great."
Okay. Question number 2. Deep Blue Sea cast member and Sopranos favorite Ida Totoro made a brief appearance as Woman on Platform in which 1995 buddy movie / Die Hard on a Blank crossover that also co-starred Jennifer Lopez.
Money Train.
Yes!
Oh,
Damn! Look at that. He just pulled out the gat and nailed it in the bullseye. That was amazing.
I knew it too.
That was I'm seriously impressed by that.
No,
that
that's
was
why
some
you're here.
lethal
Are you
shooting.
kidding? That's why you're here. That's
Amazing. Yep, the film reunited the principal actors from White Men Can't Jump. Money Train was a movie that I was like tempted to do for either show, but I'm like, I don't want to watch this again. It's really, it's. I really don't.
Who
didn't care
directed
for
Money
it.
Train?
Good question.
Ron Shelton, right?
No,
Is it Ron Shelton?
no. I know
we'll
he
check
did
it
White
out.
Men Can't Jump. We should.
Let
we
me
should
get it.
check
I'm
this.
gonna look it.
Pull it up.
Money Train, 1995.
Oh, it's Joseph Rubin.
Joseph Rubin, who is
He
Sleeping
made
with
like
the
the
Enemy.
Good Son, yeah, and the stepfather.
Okay.
The Good Son is fucked. Wow, did some interesting stuff.
Well, we also I
Okay.
did his film Joyride for Cinematograph.
Right,
Oh,
right.
very cool.
Yeah, but Money
Maybe Money
Train's like
Train's
a pretty
due a-
mean movie.
Yeah, is it worth a reappraisal? Because I just remember it not. Because I
It's
love White Men
okay.
Can't Jump, but I remember not liking
It's
Money
like
Train.
it's more interesting, like just for the New York of it all, I think,
Yeah.
and it's like a good New Year's Eve type of thing. But I remember like the thing with Money Train is they pulled it out of theaters because people were like they were copycatting the setting the person on fire in the subway.
Oh shit!
So like subway booth, like people actually did that. They like saw the
I
movie and
remember.
they like set the booths on fire with people in them.
Ay.
My guy
Well-
Skip Sudduth is in Money Train. I'd forgotten I love Skip Sudduth. All right, anyway.
Let's wrap things up with the fan favorite final quiz question: Convoluted Corner.
Gonna.
This is very convoluted. Okay. 4 members of the film's cast have featured in various Marvel comic adaptations in both film and television. Which Deep Blue Sea cast members went on to appear in Marvel film and TV shows? And you have to name what they are. I will accept 3 out of 4, so you may need to work together.
All right, well, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson is Nick Fury
Correct.
in a multitude of films. I'm not
correct.
naming them all.
You know, Thomas Jane's in The Punisher.
Correct.
Thomas Jane is in The Punisher.
There are 2 other cast members.
Stellan Skarsgård is in Thor 1 and 2,
Correct.
which is, in my mind, a joke sequel to Good Will Hunting because he's a mathematician in that. And then the 4th is, I need to look at can I look at the cast list?
Sure. You've already
Okay.
got your speedboat. Your
I know,
prize.
but I really want to get the last one.
Is Michael Rappaport in any Marvel movies?
Not to my
That's what
knowledge, he's not on my list.
No, I don't think so. I'm not gonna click on anyone's Wikipedia. Don't worry. Is it one of the main? It's not.
Do you want the clue?
Yeah, I want the clue.
Okay. One of them is this is a TV show that is closely connected to Samuel L. Jackson's character in the films.
Is
So it's
he in one of
Agents
the?
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Correct.
It's probably Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't know
Yep.
who the actor is.
Do you want me to tell you? Or you give it up?
Is it Saffron Burrows?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
yeah, Saffron Burrows played a character called Victoria
I have never
Hand
seen an episode of that show.
in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, that one kind of came and went for me. Really a fun little I have a fun little trivia, another question for you, which is the underwater ship that they try to escape in that's damaged. You know, that one that they come to appears in another film starring Samuel L. Jackson. Can you name that film?
And
there's a clue. It is Sphere. It is Sphere. It's yes, exactly. And he says that on the commentary track. He's like, I walked on set and he was like, oh, I was in that thing in Sphere. I love it when movies share props like that or share set pieces or whatever, and you'd never know. Like, I just think that's like such a cool, that like Warner Brothers, like, we have this like submarine thing.
Yeah, it was another Warner Brothers movie. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I liked Sphere. I thought it sort of went astray in the third act, but you know, the first half of that movie is fantastic.
Do they cut all the horniness?
Do
they cut all the horniness of the book? Because the book gets like a lot of Michael Crichton. The book's really horny. I've never seen the movie.
Yeah, I mean it's like a PG-13 movie.
Oh, bummer. That's a bummer because that's a horny book.
Save it for Crichton Cast. Justin, thank you so much for being our
thanks for taking all this
guest. Is there anything that you would like to tell us, that you would like to plug about forthcoming releases or cool stuff that you're up to?
We have a robust physical media audience.
Well, Drop Zone is available now on the Vinegar Syndrome website. And that's really it. You know, I don't do much else. You know, Blu-rays on the Vinegar Syndrome site. You can follow me on Letterboxd and Instagram. I'm very easy to find online. And yeah, that's really it.
Fantastic.
Do you have a favorite, like, is there a specific set or project that you've worked on at Vinegar Syndrome that might have flown under the radar that people should check out? Or is it, I'm curious.
I mean, one of my favorite things that I've ever gotten to work on is the first Blu-ray I produced, which was for Tough Guys Don't Dance. And that stars the recently departed Wings Hauser. So anybody who hasn't seen that, I highly recommend the movie. And it was my first trial by fire, you know, for producing a Blu-ray set. So, and Wings was great to work with. So I have a lot of fondness for that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. I also should point out that you guys, your first release on the label was Red Rock West, which is a movie that, like,
I love that movie. Stop moving! JT Walsh at his most, like, unhinged. I love that movie. I need to get that one.
Well, I do too.
Fantastic.
Thanks again for doing this. We'll get you out of here before we do our closer, but let me just stop recording. Thanks again, Justin.
Thanks, Justin. This was great.
Yeah.
You were awesome.
Thank you.
That was Justin LaLiberty. What a nice guy. What a knowledgeable guy. And I'm very excited for this Drop Zone set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what, Phil?
What?
You can borrow it.
Oh, thanks, Liam. We've broken through that. We've broken through the barrier, to quote the Tina Turner song from the Days of Thunder soundtrack. That's a joke for one guy that digs that song.
That person's very happy, though. That person's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme right now, though. So that worked out.
Okay. So thank you so much, Justin. That was great. Super knowledgeable guy. Lovely gentleman. Rate, review, subscribe. Find us on, where are we? Well, we're barely anywhere now, are we? Instagram
we're on Blue
and
Sky.
Blue Sky.
Nobody's on. Is anyone on social media anymore? I feel very low engagement numbers, and I'm starting to not care. You can listen to the show on YouTube, and you can even see clips of us on YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. So, you can follow us on YouTube. You can email us at diehardoab@gmail.com with your thoughts, with your feelings, with how you're feeling about the show. And you can get involved on our Patreon and chat with us. We're pretty responsive on there.
We have a Patreon. We have never brought it up.
Yeah,
is that right?
We have this like
we never mentioned it.
It's called it's patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies, where we look at the paradigm changer 48 hours, similar to Die Hard, and we look at the movies that it influenced. And most recently, we covered Stakeout. And next up, sorry.
Red Heat is next.
Yeah.
Red Heat will be the next one.
Recent entries include Stakeout and Shoot to Kill / Deadly Pursuit if you're in the UK, which was a really enjoyable Spot Us Wood, Suns Rise Up kind of film. And next up we have Red Heat.
Yeah.
Directed by
Walter Hill.
Hillheads Rise Up. I gotta get a new joke.
Can you dig it? We love doing that show. It's awesome. We've done all the Beverly Hills Cop movies. We've done 48 Hours. We've done Stakeout. We've done
a lot of Badham coming up.
China.
Big
A lot of
Trouble.
Badham joints.
Trouble.
It's a lot of fun, and we kind of get to be even more silly on that show than we are on this show.
We
Next
get
time
to really
on this show,
unleash
on
our
our
silly.
serious show, on our more serious show, we
Yeah.
are doing a serious movie.
We are, unfortunately. Fortunately, unfortunately.
A great
What film is it?
movie, Arlington Road. Fantastic movie. Wow, it's so good. I mean, it hits different. I will say that, but boy is it good. Jeff Bridges, Tim Robbins, a fantastic thriller. And
Who
it's
is
basically
the
Die Hard on a suburban street.
Female lead in that movie?
It's Hope Davis and Joan Cusack.
Hope Davis. I used to. I love Hope Davis. I just really love her.
She's great. I
she's
saw her on
really
stage in God of Carnage. Let's let these good people get out of here and get on with their lives. Thank you for joining us for
Thank
this
you to
fun
Justin.
movie. Thanks to Justin.
Once more time.
Thanks to Tyson for doing all our amazing artwork.
We'll be back next time with Jeff Bridges running desperately again, to reference our previous episode on Blown Away. So get excited. Die Hard on a Blank is a podcast from Philip Gothorn and Liam Billingham. Tyson Hubley makes our art. You can hear exclusive episodes of our Patreon show at patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies. Rate, review, subscribe, and tell your action movie loving friends about the show. See you next time on Die Hard on a Blank.
Hey guys, it's Mary from Two Judgy Girls, and get ready for a new season of the Hulu original reality series Vanderpump Villa. This season, Lisa moves Vanderpump Villa to an all-new castle in Italy. Lisa is joined by the one and only Stassi Schroeder to help keep an eye on the new and returning staff. The elite staff will face scrutiny like never before as they work and play under one roof. New castle, new guests, and new drama. Season 2 of Vanderpump Villa premieres April 24th, streaming on Hulu.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
This is Paige, the co-host of Giggly Squad. I use Uber Eats for everything, and I feel like people forget that you can truly order anything, especially living in New York City. It's why I love it. You can get Chinese food at any time of night, but it's not just for food. I order from CVS all the time. I'm always ordering from the grocery store. If a friend stops over, I have to order champagne. I also have this thing that whenever I travel, if I'm ever in a hotel room, I never feel like I'm missing something because I'll just Uber Eats it. The amount of times I've had to Uber Eats hair items like hairspray, deodorant, you name it, I've ordered it on Uber Eats. You can get grocery, alcohol, everyday essentials in addition to restaurants and food you love. So in other words, get almost anything with Uber Eats. Order now. For alcohol, you must be legal drinking age. Please enjoy responsibly. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Hi guys, it's Phil
And Liam.
from Die Hard on a Blank, and we're excited to talk to you about a brand new podcast we're launching called 48 Hours of Buddy Movies.
That's right, folks. 48-hour-long
Approximately.
episodes exploring 48 different buddy movies, beginning with the original classic that started it all, Walter Hill's 1982 masterpiece, 48 Hours, starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy.
And just like Die Hard on a Blank, our new show will explore the influence of 48 Hours on the action genre, one body movie at a time.
We'll be covering iconic franchises such as the Beverly Hills Cop movies, the Stakeout movies, the Bad Boys movies, classics of the genre like Running Scared,
Hyams Hive Rise Up,
Midnight Run, Red Heat, Tango and Cash, The Hard Way,
plus tough thrillers such as To Live and Die in LA, Black Rain, Point Break, Training Day, and The Way of the Gun.
as well as a few wild cards that you might not expect, such as RoboCop, Alien Nation, and, of course, Phil's favorite,
Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
So if you're a fan of two buddies talking buddy movies,
Then 48 Hours of Buddy Movies is for you.
visit patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe for the price of 1 cup of coffee a month.
See you in the squad car.
Or walking to the squad car, mildly irritated that we've been paired off.
Wherever. That's patreon.com/48 hours of buddy movies to subscribe.